Hello, and thank you for your patience. We had a little bit of a weather issue a moment ago where we lost power. Good times. Welcome to today's webinar. I am Julie Fogel, the Marketing Director at CurryWorks, and I will be your host for today's webinar, New Admin Tools for OnBase. Today, we are joined not just by one, but two experts from Hyland Software who will walk us through all the new tools available in OnBase that will help make administration tasks easier. Before I introduce today's presenters, I do have a few housekeeping items. Again, we have muted the attendees' microphones and want to make sure you can engage with us, so please do utilize that chat box feature to drop questions on the topic. And we'll be monitoring those throughout the session and address questions at the end. We are recording today's webinar and we'll share a link to the session for you to share with colleagues or view at another time. And now, without further ado, today's speakers. John Swisher joined CurryWorks in 2014 as a senior sales engineer, and he's held various roles in solution development before becoming our vice president of sales and product December of 2020. From Hyland Software, Tyler Kahn. Tyler's held a number of development roles since starting at Hyland in 2013. He currently serves as product owner for configuration services and change control utilities. Brandon Shade joined Hyland in 2018, and he serves as a sales solution engineer. Thanks everyone for being with us. Let's get started.
Thanks, Julie. And before we get started, one thing I want to just jump into real quick is we've kind of had the fortunate ability of having both Brandon and Tyler with us. So we're going to get started with Tyler going through more of your solution administration type items, and then move over to Brandon to your more system administration. So we've kind of put these into two different parts. And again, as Julie said, we're recording this and we'll be sending out this recording to you, but please do not be afraid to ask questions. We'll be monitoring those as we progress. Over to you, Tyler.
Thanks, John. All right, well, hello everyone. As previously mentioned, my name is Tyler Kahn. I am the product owner here for our configuration services and change control utilities. A little bit of the agenda today. I realize we have a nice little time slot here, so I won't delve too much into the agenda, spoil it for Brandon there. But I will be here talking to you all today about our new OnBase admin portal. I do have some screenshots, which I'll pop through, but this is available for you in 22.1 and is also available through our community page to try out with a self-paced lab. So I'd encourage you, if you want a more of a deeper dive, a hands-on approach, check that out as well. And I'm also our product owner for our change control utility. So the wonderful import-export utility, test system creation, and our new EVM. So I'll talk about those two topics for you all today. Before handing it over to Brandon for some of the studio enhancements and system administration fun enhancements. So with that, let's jump right in. The OnBase administration portal. This is the highly anticipated web-based configuration client for accessing and configuring some of your most frequently used configurations. Available initially in 22.1, we're exposing a very targeted, a very focused subset of configurations, specifically around security for your users and user groups, along with some of those core metadata features, document types, keyword types, and I believe file formats, which I don't have listed here. This is, once installed, we really streamlined the solution development aspect of this all for you. So you no longer have to jump from your OnBase Studio into classic config. If you're a hosted individual, you don't have to go through that Citrix client experience. You will now, with the OnBase admin portal installed, have a shiny new button in OnBase Studio that you can click, and it'll pop it up into a nice web browser for you. So I did want to call out new in 23.1, so maybe a little bit of a spoiler alert for my presentation I'll be giving at Community Live. But in 23.1, we've taken this even a step further and expanded those user group privileges, brought config rights, product rights as well, along with more base metadata level configuration. So your doc type groups, your keyword type groups, and your file format. So that's where file formats is coming in at. I knew it was somewhere in our release. But really the goal here with the OnBase admin portal is to, I'm not removing these configurations from our classic config client. I'm simply exposing them in an additional modern format for you all to really streamline that configuration experience and bring it into the latest decade here. So.
Tyler,
some fun screenshots. Go ahead, John. Sorry about that.
No, all good. I know for me personally, while I'm not in there a lot, I am in Studio way more than I'm in config, right? And we've moved all of our demo stuff to the cloud, so we don't have access in that same way. And just going into an RDP session, opening up config, you have a couple different pointers that you're pointing. You have all of your different environments. Right there in Studio, you're in the environment you want. Open that up, and this list is just going to continue to grow, I imagine, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We have even more targeted for 23.1. That's just a little what I'm absolutely sure will make it in, but then even into 24 and 25, I have a nice little roadmap there set up. So
awesome.
On that point, for those attending, if there are pieces that I haven't talked about, or if there are configuration screens that you're using on a daily basis that I haven't mentioned throughout or don't mention throughout this conversation, please bubble that up, whether that's throwing an idea on community, emailing me directly, or going through John. I'm not sure if you're a good contact person there, but please bubble those up, those requests. I'm looking to add the most commonly used and the most all right, yeah, just on screen here, I have a quick screenshot of what you'll see here in 22.1. This is specifically around our user group settings. You'll notice we cover some privileges, some of the most frequently accessed privileges. However, in 23.1, we pulled this up and really brought parity to what is available through classic config as well. So not just with those privileges, but some of the client-based product and client features. You see our table of contents there scaled out nicely, so you're able to kind of search through and go through and really configure these on the fly. So another quick screenshot, doc type groups. These are focused more on our new screens in 23.1. Unfortunately, doc type groups isn't the shiniest or fun, the most fun screen that we have, nor is keyword type groups, but that these are essential core pieces of OnBase. So I did want to call those out as well. So.
Well, one thing I'll just add, Tyler, I mean, from an administrator's point of view, they're likely, if they're invested into workflow and workview, they are living in Studio, and it's always, in my personal experience, it's always the user group or user rights that get added last, and that's what I was kind of referring to on going into RDP, opening that up, and if I can just do that here and I can totally see why those were the first ones to be added. But yeah, this is exciting stuff.
Yeah, one other use case that brought users up in priority was the need or the want to be able to quickly lock and unlock users from more of that administrative perspective. Through this web-based interface, you're able to quickly find those users that have been locked or need their password changed, search for them, unlock them, and be in and out, without that RDP session. So yeah, I don't have a screenshot of that here today, but again, even more reason to jump into some of those self-paced labs on community and try it out. So
absolutely.
Or hunt me down at Community Live. I'll be stomping around there as well as one of my architects. He's pretty knowledgeable. I like to bring him around for more of those technical questions. So. All right, so on the flip side, what I showed off was the OnBase admin portal, the UI portion of this. Something I do like to touch on and talk about when discussing these modern configuration experiences is the backend API. So what the team has built out is everything that you've seen on the OAP on OnBase Admin Portal for short, has a backing endpoint in our administrative APIs. And these administrative APIs are hosted in our API server. So if you have that up and running, you're getting those for free. And you essentially link the two up, the OnBase Admin Portal and our admin APIs, and it all function as a nice ecosystem. If you want, the possibility is absolutely there if you have the know-how and the experience to call these APIs directly and potentially even build out your own custom modern interfaces that interface directly with those administrative APIs. And this is a real great way for you to customize and really fine tune some of your, I don't want to use the term workflow, but some of your business processes by building out those custom screens as you see fit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to hopefully hear, from our customers attending, what's kind of noodling around in their heads after hearing this, because a lot of folks may not be aware. And I know when I first was made aware of this, like, whoa, like the possibilities really are endless.
Yeah, we didn't. You'll actually notice these are initially available in the EP4, but we didn't really widely broadcast it because it isn't the most user-friendly experience. The OAP is really that first is that general nice way, pretty way for admins to configure these in a modern experience, but we do want to maintain parity with these admin APIs. So.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So again, just touching on some of the additional privileges in 23.1. With the OAP edition, we needed to expand our API offerings for user group security. And then a fun one that I didn't have a screenshot of that I'm highly confident will make it into 23.1. But again, that's all subject to our development cycle, our global settings. So being able to configure that app server URL data source and some of the more environmental URLs, exposing those directly in the OAP is a goal of mine. So we have the API for them. I'm just hoping to also get them added into that web interface.
Yeah.
And we did keep in mind, a lot of these functionalities, a lot of these features we added into 22.1 were requested in EP5. So we did backport a good portion of our new pieces in 22.1 back to EP5, such as lock and unlock users, some of the user admin options, along with internal data sets. So again, the OAP is not available in EP5. It is initially released in 22.1, but we did want to bring these features and functionalities to those of you on EP5 through the API, so you could, as mentioned, build out screens as you see fit. So. And before I jump into my next section, that was all I had for you on the OnBase Admin Portal side. So this new web config. Were there questions, comments, thoughts that came up while I was kind of talking and showing it off there?
I have not seen anything come through on the chat at this moment, Tyler.
Awesome. I am seeing something, but I can't quite pull it up. So let me see if I can figure that out.
Sure. Well, I will encourage everyone on the call today, if you plan on either participating at some of our TechQuest events or, as I mentioned, Community Live, I'm around. I'm open to hearing that feedback, and please hunt me down and find me out at some of these Hyland events, because I'm typically there floating around. So
this was the question. I'm able to find it now. It says, I'm using OnBase 22.1 through Citrix. Can I see config items directly through Studio?
Once installed the OnBase Admin Portal, wherever you're installing that OnBase Admin Portal app, that's where you would get that URL and be able to see those configuration options there. So those configuration options, maybe to dig more into that, are not going to be displayed directly in OnBase Studio. You will need to click the button to open the admin portal pull up your web browser to open the admin portal to view those configuration options. Hopefully that answered the question there. All right, well, if anything does come up, feel free to ping me. Let me know. I can always circle back here. For the sake of time, I'll quickly switch my hats here away from config services and put my change control hat on. So OnBase change control, it was previously called change management in some cases, but we rebranded a bit into our change control utilities simply to clear up the fact that, you know, change management is really how you're adopting these new change practices at your companies or at your organizations. Change control is really controlling these configuration changes and making sure that your OnBase environments are synchronized with these tools that we have made and enhanced throughout our foundational releases. So I did want to cover, I did fill the slide up a bit, but I wanted to make everyone on the call aware of some of the larger changes that we've made throughout Foundation that have solved a lot of the headaches or roadblocks that we've previously seen in 17, 18, even going back into OnBase 16 if you've been around a little while. We have seen, we have heard, we've been kind of in the trenches with some of those support calls and issues that have come up through the import-export utility. So, you know, throughout Foundation, we have made huge enhancements to not only the import side, but the export side, along with just the change control processes as a whole. So starting, you know, EP1, we added the ability to visualize, view, and then prune out your export package before you ever save those configuration options into the export package itself for migration. This is huge because it allows you to, it avoids what we refer to as the vacuum cleaner effect, where you export one life cycle and you get every life cycle and every workflow, work view object in your system. You know, that was a problem in the past that we have solved with this export pruning, because now you can see exactly through this OnBase spider web of references why are all these items being exported and essentially prune them out, saving both time on the export side and then certainly on the import side when trying to reference these things. So.
Yeah, and I mean, for folks that, you know, even if you only have one test environment, this is immensely useful if you're putting changes into production. Because I know, again, from my own experience, if it's a small change in the past, I just make that same change twice because it would be quicker than trying to export and figure it out and import. But what this allows everyone to do now is make those small or even large changes very easily across their different environments. Because I would be willing to bet that 90% of folks out there don't have an identical test and development environment to production. There's not anything wrong with that. That's a hard thing to do, right? But this makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And on really the flip side of that export piece, along in EP1, we've enhanced our auto resolves so that you can be more confident, and it's more, you don't have to go through and resolve. John, to your point, I don't have to manage all these configuration options and resolve them all manually. I can be more confident in that auto resolve to make sure it's doing the job that it should. So we also created a brand new utility similar to what John you mentioned there with I just go into production and make a small change, or I'm in dev and I make a handful of changes. We created a brand new utility called change tracking, which is also exposed through OnBase Studio with track changes, I believe is the button. It's up there on the ribbon as of EP3. But what this interface does is it allows you to quickly query and identify all changes that have been made to your configuration through OnBase Studio, .conf, Unity Forms, your capture processes. And we also do include a subset of configuration changes made through our classic config client. Those metadata pieces, doc types, keyword types. I think we hit autofills. The MRG has the full list of all configurations that are covered by change tracking. But really the goal of this, the reason we created this, was to allow you to really get focused and granular with what changes have occurred and what should I be exporting, what should I be migrating, as opposed to the let me grab everything from my dev environment and throw it back up and deploy it up to prod, even though it may not need it. So.
Oh, especially when you have, more than two sets of hands, or I'm sorry, one set of hands working in there. Yep, absolutely.
And then last but not least, my shiny new toy alongside the OnBase admin portal that I like to talk about in EP5 is a product called Environment Value Management. I actually have some slides here about it that I'll talk to before I jump back to some of those other screenshots. But Environment Value Management was initially released in EP5. We enhanced it in 22.1 a bit. But the elevator pitch I like to give with this is that it's a way to view the environment values in your system and then create value sets for your additional environments. And the true power of EVM comes with its integration point with our test system creation utility. When you use those value sets along with test system creation, you get a one-click refresh of a test or a dev environment, making it, to your point, John, earlier, hey, it's hard and tedious and maybe not the most accurate to have those test systems align with your production. When you use environment value management alongside that test system creation utility, you're getting pretty close for not a lot of time ran. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I will say this doesn't necessarily, if you're hosted in CPE or if you're a hosted individual, they have their own processes for refreshing your test systems. You won't have to worry about this, but especially for those on-prem users, this is a great new tool that I'd highly recommend you get hands-on with and just start playing around with as much as possible. So.
Agreed.
And really, that's it. I did have a quick slide I wanted to show off our export pruning and visualization screen. Again, this is available as of EP1, so feel free to pull up your environments, play around with it. We're giving you a lot of data here, and because of that, it is an optional piece of the process. But this really does allow you to fine-tune those export packages. We have a change tracking here. This is a big query I ran back in January or July of last year, searching for all the changes I made in the last 2 weeks. We show you where the change occurred, who made the change, along with what item was changed there. So.
Very cool.
Yeah, and with that, there's a screenshot of EVM as well. It's web-based as well. But with that, that's all I have. What questions or comments do we all have?
Well, we did have a couple, John. Before we moved on, I wanted to see, there was a couple people that asked questions around the availability of this functionality. Is it available in 22.1, or do we need something additional? And I think there was another question that may have been referring to the studio that you had gone through earlier.
Sure, yeah, so let me, I'll pull up this slide here as a talking point. Environment value management is available in EP5. That is the new, integration point with test system creation. That's our new tool for managing some of those value sets in your environment values. Everything else here listed, change tracking available in EP3, along with export pruning is available in EP1, starting in EP1, and of course then throughout the rest of the foundational releases. The OnBase admin portal, the first bit that I was talking about, that is initially released in 22.1, so not in EP5. You just have access to our admin APIs for you to use as you see fit. We are bringing the modern web experience to you in 22.1.
Great. And then there's one other question around, is the issue stated with the export import resolved within EP3 20.3.3.1000?
Yeah, I would highly encourage you to reach out to your first line of support for those types of specific issues. We have resolved a good number of bugs and enhancements. Off the top of my head, I can't really dig into specific changes though. That's what they're there for. They'll most likely reach out to me or Brandon and then to me, and we can get you an answer on that. So.
And
Yeah,
a demo of EP3 change tracking, how do we get one of those?
Yeah, so change tracking is, I have a screenshot here. It is available to you. So any of the demo environments that you may have or can get your hands on should have this ready to go. It's as simple. I'll use this time maybe to pitch my self-paced lab again. If you have access to Hyland University, I think it's called now, you can go in there. I have it's called Test System Creation. Self-paced lab, but it covers this whole change control process and digs into each of these products. That there will walk you through change tracking as well. So.
And also, regarding the issue in that particular version, just as Tyler said, please reach out to, our customer care team, your account manager, me, and we'll help you get pointed in the right direction. And that's the same for, a demonstration of this as well.
Absolutely. Great. So I think that's all I had. Brandon, I think you're up. Let me make sure I can stop my share. Or.
Yep. Thank you. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the right screen now. All right. Can everyone see my, or John, can you verify I got the screen up there that says system administration? Awesome.
Yep, you're the right one.
So I let Tyler go first in the sake of time. I know he had the more fun stuff to talk about on today's call as that solution administrator side. And I'll kind of walk us through some system administration. So still some very powerful information to know when you're administrating your environment. But again, not as maybe colorful or as fun as Tyler's content. So we'll kind of push through here. But so first, what I'm going to kind of talk to really about is applying those services releases and really what types of tools or tool you could utilize when needing to upgrade or update that system. First, I want to talk about that server updater. So just for everyone who maybe is a little bit unfamiliar with their server updater, the server updater is really just, it has multiple features really to make your update of that frustration free. No more remembering the configuration options or having to really recopy the server installation files in order to really deploy those additional instances. Really, some of those key features within that server updater is really, again, identifying each instance and version number of that installed web services and application servers, validates the current server installation, creates a backup from the server, applies an update to the server, and then really keeps all the previous settings intact. There's really no additional configuration is needed after the update. So that's really kind of, again, the I guess, features and definition of the server updater. Now let's talk about what's new with this new release. For this release, we did add some support for additional web applications and web services to that server updater application. Again, just to kind of think of this in a business use case, there is an operational cost, for CPE or another on-premise admin when they really need to apply a critical defect or security related fixes to a hosted customer or an on-premise solution. The benefit, this really just helps simplify that manual effort required to update software in an either type of environment. Any OnBase solution can leverage this. And again, really, we slated to release this back in OnBase 22. So this is, with that 22.1 release with this new update. So again, these are just a quick screen grab of those web applications and web services that were supported prior to 2022, and moving forward, we've added some additional support there in 22 and moving forward to 23 this fall.
So Brandon, said in other words, going back to one of the earlier questions we had about a specific build number, right? And if we find out that, a build, 10 builds later has that particular fix in it, and it's that update's required at the app server level. So instead of going through, grabbing the right build, installing all that, copying down my web.config, all of my settings, this is that tool I use just to get me to that new build very easily, point and click. So I don't have to worry about all of those environmental type items for it, right?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, and then here's just really a screenshot of the web application screen within the server updater, just to kind of give you that real quick view. I know everyone likes visuals, especially myself. So now, everything in this screenshot has been grouped by application type. You can also see, we could sort out or search for data in this layout too. And then even though they aren't pictured here, the server updater does now recognize, those other, modules that are on the right-hand side of the screen, including, Agenda Online, Archive Link, etc. But yeah, just good things to keep in mind as well.
Oh, and at the very least, a great tracking tool, right? Because I'm sure there are folks out there that have, rogue, install, whether it be a service or an app of an old version of OnBase that, hey, it's still running, but they just may not be aware of it.
Exactly. And then again, here's just another screenshot of the web services screen. Now this is really grouped by the application type, just so you can see the difference between the last screenshot to this screenshot. And again, the server updater now recognizes, those additional modules as well, with that mailbox importer, Unity scheduler, and diagnostic service. And then just to quickly touch on, our web applications management console. Again, really just kind of continues to be that OnBase traditional point and click configuration. This is really just going to assist in preventing typos and invalid values. Settings have additional hint text. The export and import capabilities used during upgrades and configuring multiple modules when load balanced. Ability to encrypt sensitive data such as POP integration URLs and passwords, decrypts values, allowing review of the settings. Configure Hyland logging through diagnostic settings, set that impersonation identification to allow encryptions of the domain and user and password in the registry, and really just kind of moving through these next slides, just continuing to provide different screenshots of that web application management console. As I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these different screens that I'm showing here today.
And I might be dating myself, Brandon, but I remember when WAMCon was pretty much just what's on your screen here, and that was it. And then now there's a million different tabs you can set up, a million different things, and ultimately it just makes folks' lives easier. Because for anyone still in Notepad++ or in Notepad, there are some folks that still prefer it, but for me, I mean, anytime I can point and click and not have to find these files and find the right tag, that's a win.
Absolutely, yeah. Just trying to, to your point, eliminate things and numerous different places to store that data. Obviously, we're all just trying to consolidate items into one place, and this really does help that.
Absolutely.
And then one other piece to talk through the system administration is really the Hyland IDP enhancements. And And just for anyone that, is not aware, we've really introduced the Hyland IDP as of, Foundation EP1. Formerly on version 17 and 18, there was the OnBase IDP, but that has been, deprecated and sunset. So obviously moving forward, any customers or anyone leveraging OnBase, EP1 or move forward, they would leverage the Hyland IDP for that way to authenticate with the system. We have just some really standard Hyland IDP administration. Just really upload that metadata, XML versus manual entry, large number of user group memberships, display entity ID for the provider in admin UI. That admin UI support for additional configuration and JSON files, configuration validation feedback in the admin UI, signing certificate validation, support for end-to-end encryption, configuration retention during upgrades, and those SAML provider configuration as well.
Yeah, and I know, for some of our customers, it may not be on their radar yet, or it already is. I know for, just about any new prospects we talk to, one of the things that is always now required is obviously end-to-end encryption, right? Encryption at rest and encryption while in transit. So that one, if it isn't on your radar, IDP is going to be required. Please, again, reach out to our customer care team, reach out to your account manager so we can get this going sooner than later for you. And then additionally, take advantage of, the list of these administration items that Brandon's walking through. Again, these are just, the heavy hitters here. So I think, when we're looking at how we're authenticating, right, into our solutions, just like the entire theme of this webinar, we're attempting to try and put all these things into one place. And that's true with, administration, which in my head, when it comes to OnBase, covers a lot of things: security, authentication, reporting, so on and so forth. But I'll stop rambling, Brandon.
No, good points, John. And also just know that we do have a lot of great content out on community as well as university around the Hyland IDP. So whether you want to, research additional information around, configuration on Hyland IDP, or including, different articles or blogs, there is a lot out on community, including, our authentication and security group. Highly recommend joining that group out on community. And then again, we do have a lot of great training information out on university as well that I highly recommend leveraging.
And one of the things we haven't even mentioned yet for all, everyone here are administrators, right? This is for the OnBase administrators, is now all of the MRGs are searchable via community as well. So you don't have to download the PDF to look through. Much more user-friendly to search through and go through previous versions even as well. So for me, that's been a lifesaver, especially when trying to learn something new, or try and figure out that last bit of configuration, for sure.
Absolutely. And just to kind of wrap up my piece here, maybe to kind of bring the group back up and talk on a high note here. Just some studio low code enhancements, really talking to workview, workflow, forms. I just have kind of a nice screenshot here just to kind of give you a nice preview of all those latest enhancements that we've added to these different functionalities with inside of the software. So highly encourage, if you're leveraging one of these functionalities inside the OnBase solution today, these are, as of 22.1, these enhancements have been included. So, obviously be on the lookout for these. And to John's point, please reference our documentation for further insight on any of these enhancements, as we will have it documented out there. And when John's talking about that new way to search for documents and information out on community, or excuse me, out on a site rather than the PDFs. I'm just going to kind of pull over my screen there, and what I'm kind of viewing is it is that web-based encyclopedia of all of our MRGs. So again, rather than having to search for or download a PDF and then search for it, I have all these MRGs already within that web-based view. It's really just a matter of finding that appropriate MRG, and then I can search for my content all right there, again, rather than having to sit there and download each individual PDF separately.
Yeah, because it's previously it was either in system administration or the other product you were looking for. Right
Mm-hmm.
now it's all right here. Real quick, Brandon, if you go back to your slide deck, there's a ton on here that I'm psyched about, but there's two that come out to me particular. First one was the top left one. So I mean, work view, custom actions. If anyone here is familiar with Unity Forms, the ability to point and click custom, well, for lack of a better term, actions to happen was a huge enhancement to Unity Forms and really made the creation and administration of those the time frame to do so shrink quite a bit, because before all of that was coded, you've always had the ability to do that in WorkView, but now you have that same functionality where it's true point and click. And the same thing goes for those collapsible sections, the third one down. There are a lot of organizations out there that are taking advantage of WorkView, and throughout the nature of kind of building it and listening to different users, the screens have gotten very cluttered. There's too much information, but all of it's useful, right? And that's where those collapsible sections come in very handy, because if we have 8 teams looking at one screen, I can go right to mine, expand my section, put in the information I need, and move on to the next one. Again, something we've always had, but now all of these are point and click. And I'm not going to walk through each one of them, but for me, coming from a WorkView background more recently, those two are game changers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with organizations really looking to sunset their legacy applications. That, to your point, John, that's really where WorkView is a great tool. So if you aren't using WorkView today, obviously work with your CareerWorks team there, and maybe get a little bit more education on it, see how it could really empower your organization, and then with that you could start utilizing these newest enhancements inside of OnBase WorkView as well.
Perfect. Well, I mean, you got me. This slide is very exciting for me. I'm not sure if you had any additional slides, Brandon, or if any questions came through towards the end there, Julie. I don't think I have the ability to see those. Oh, perfect. Okay. See if I can try and find them.
And again, if any questions came up regarding the content that Tyler provided earlier as well, we're happy to answer those as well. I know he had a lot there that he covered, so.
Yeah, there were a few, but there was one that the CSS configurations on WorkView, they were saying, wasn't that already there?
Oh, I think, Brandon, if you want, yeah, the last one under the low code, if you don't mind, Brandon, I could jump in on this
sure,
one.
go ahead, John.
Because this is a big one as well. I thought about bringing it up, but so it absolutely was already there, but now you have the ability to get the result of CSS configurations in a point and click manner. So that's why it's kind of under that kind of low code whole section, because all of this, again, functionality, I don't know if cards exist, you could probably coded those in through CSS, but now you can point and click. And for those of you familiar with how those have worked, particularly with even nesting and having different styles for different sections within, and now you have the ability to do all of that without worrying about syntax or opening up Notepad or anything like that.
And I know that we had talked about versions, but there were a number of questions around what version folks need to be on to get the admin portal and change control apps? That might be for you, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. The OnBase admin portal is initially released in 22.1. I shared some fun new enhancements coming in 23.1, but it is widely available to you all now in 22.1.
And again, I will let folks know that that community live session is pretty handy if you all want to join us in Vegas. And then lastly, there was one around the environment value management. Is there a list of all the variables that can be saved or tracked in EVM? I believe that's what they're saying, environment value
You hit the nail on the
management.
head. Yeah, this is a great
Okay.
question that we always get. Yeah, we do. I do have a document. I can actually I can bundle it up with the slides that get sent out as well. So
Awesome.
Perfect.
And I think that does bring us to the end of all the questions. This was a very engaged audience. Thank you so much for your attention today. I also would like to thank John, Tyler, and Brandon for sharing their insight with us. For all the attendees, please watch your email. We'll send out a link to today's recording. And again, we would love feedback. So if you enjoyed today's webinar, or if you didn't, please do complete the survey that'll pop up once we do close out of the webinar. On behalf of everyone at CurryWorks and frankly Hyland Software, I thank each of you for your time. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks,
see
everyone.
y'all.